Welcome to Kleppers Corner, where we pull the dusty drapes off history and realize it's been binge-watching humanity's bad decisions on repeat. Some dates in history feel like nature just said, let's try everything today. October 21st is one of those days. Empires fought for oceans, scientists fought the darkness, explorers fought the map, native tribes fought treaties, miners fought gravity, and protesters fought the Pentagon. Literally. It's a date that shouts, we've learned nothing, but at least now it's in high definition. So buckle up as we travel through 500 years of human chaos, where every breakthrough comes with a side of regret, and every act of bravery is followed by a, wait, maybe don't do that again. Segment 1, the Battle of Trafalgar, when Britain won the ocean and lost its modesty. October 21st, 1805. Britain secured its naval dominance at the Battle of Trafalgar. Admiral Horatio Nelson, think Elon Musk, but with fewer tweets and more cannonballs, decided to defy centuries of naval tradition by attacking the enemy line head-on. This was the 19th century equivalent of saying, I don't play chess, I flip the board. Nelson's plan, known as the Nelson Touch, involved splitting his fleet in two and sailing directly into the combined French and Spanish line, because nothing says strategy like crashing straight into your problems. And it worked. Britain destroyed 18 enemy ships and didn't lose a single one. It was a victory so decisive it made every other navy on Earth say, you know what, maybe we'll just stick to fishing. But in classic British fashion, they celebrated by turning it into a national personality trait. Britannia rules the waves became the 19th century version of We're Number One. And Nelson, who died mid-battle, became so legendary they literally shipped him home preserved in a barrel of brandy. That's not a funeral, that's an alcoholic mummy. Trafalgar proved one thing. Sometimes reckless courage beats perfect planning. It also proved another. If you die heroically enough, people will ignore the part where your plan involved ramming things on purpose. Segment 2. Edison's light bulb. The original bright idea with a 99% sweat warranty. Jump to 1879. Thomas Edison finally perfected the incandescent light bulb after testing over 6,000 materials, including, allegedly, his assistant's beard. Nothing says visionary like setting your coworker's chin hair on fire. Edison's success wasn't about sudden brilliance. It was about building a sweatshop for ideas. Menlo Park was the world's first invention factory. It was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory if, instead of candy, you got mild electrocution. After 13 hours of glowing success on October 21st, 1879, humanity officially divorced the candle. Edison didn't just invent the bulb, he invented the system. Power plants, wiring, sockets, and the bill you hate every month. The man didn't just bring us light, he brought us electric capitalism. Of course, Edison also had the marketing skills of Steve Jobs and the modesty of Kanye. He didn't invent everything himself, but he sure took credit like he did. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, he said, which is accurate if the perspiration belongs to the team you didn't give royalties to. Still, give the man his due. He didn't just light up a room, he lit up the century. And he gave generations of dads a new phrase. Turn off that light, it costs money. Segment 3, Magellan's Passage, the original GPS error. Now back to 1520. Ferdinand Magellan, a man whose name sounds like a brand of telescopes, set out to find a shortcut to the Spice Islands by sailing west. Because why sail around Africa like everyone else when you can die inventing your own detour? After losing ships to storms, mutinies, and probably scurvy, Magellan found his way into a treacherous passage at the bottom of South America. On October 21st, 1520, he finally entered what would become the Strait of Magellan. It was a monumental feat of navigation, equal parts bravery and bad idea. It took 38 days to get through. That's longer than most Netflix relationships. One of his ships literally gave up mid-journey and sailed home. That's how you know morale's low, when even the ship quits. Magellan himself didn't live to see the end of his expedition, but one surviving vessel made it around the world. It was like humanity's first global road trip, except with more cannibalism and fewer selfies. So yes, Magellan opened the door to globalization, but he also set the tone for every explorer after him. I'm lost, but at least I discovered something. Segment 4, the Medicine Lodge Treaty. How to lose friends and colonize people. Fast forward to 1867, where America decided that manifest destiny wasn't manifesting fast enough. The Medicine Lodge Treaty was supposed to bring peace between the U.S. government and several Southern Plains tribes, the Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache. Spoiler, it didn't. The tribes agreed to move on to reservations, give up huge swaths of land, and receive annuities of food and supplies. Basically, the government promised, "You'll love it." It's like an all-inclusive resort, except you can't leave and the staff keeps your buffalo. The U.S. called it diplomacy. The tribes called it survival. And like every bad roommate agreement, the fine print was never honored. Within a year, the treaty was broken faster than a campaign promise. What makes the story sting is that even the Peace Commission admitted the government was at fault, then immediately ignored that fact. That's like apologizing while signing the eviction notice. The Medicine Lodge Treaty shows how negotiation often meant, here's a pen, we already decided. And it left a wound that shaped centuries of mistrust. In short, it was less peace and friendship and more terms and conditions apply. Segment 5, the Aberfan disaster, the day the mountain fell. October 21st, 1966, in the Welsh village of Aberfan, a coal tip, basically a man-made mountain of mining waste, collapsed after heavy rain, engulfing a school and killing 144 people, including 116 children. It was a tragedy that shouldn't have happened, and everyone knew it. The coal board had been warned for years. Locals complained the tip sat on top of a spring, but officials waved them off like a toddler insisting, "It's fine, I'm an engineer." It wasn't fine. When the disaster hit, the slurry moved faster than anyone could run. It wiped out a generation of kids in seconds. The tribunal that followed called it a terrifying tale of bungling ineptitude, which is British for everyone responsible should be in jail. No one was prosecuted, not one person. The National Coal Board shrugged, apologized, and went back to work. Because in the 1960s, corporate accountability was like a unicorn. Everyone loved the idea. No one had seen one. Aberfan forced Britain to rethink industrial safety laws, but for the survivors, the grief lasted generations. It was a tragedy built not by fate, but by negligence stacked higher than the coal itself. Segment 6, the March on the Pentagon. When the 60s tried to levitate the military. 1 year later, October 21st, 1967, Washington, D.C. The air smelled of patchouli and revolution. The Vietnam War had hit its breaking point, and thousands marched to the Pentagon to protest. But this wasn't your average rally. It was half political movement, half performance art. The plan? To exercise the Pentagon and make it levitate. Because if bombs can fly, why not the building that orders them? As absurd as it sounds, it worked as symbolism. When protesters faced off with soldiers, flowers went into rifle barrels. Chants filled the air, and the image of peace confronting power burned into history. It was Woodstock with bayonets. Of course, no magic levitation occurred. The Pentagon stayed grounded, physically, if not morally. But the moment marked a turning point, America watching itself fight itself. The 82nd Airborne lined up against college kids with guitars. The establishment literally met its counterculture mirror. By nightfall, hundreds were arrested. The war didn't end that day, but the illusion of unity did. The march showed that dissent is patriotic, even when it looks like chaos in tie-dye. The place time is This Is Major to the March on the Pentagon in closing. A single day, 1,000 lessons. What ties all these moments together? Ambition, hubris, the eternal tug of war between progress and consequence. October 21st is the date humanity looked outward, inward, and occasionally downward into a pit of its own making. We've sailed into storms, wired the night, drawn borders on maps we didn't understand, and shouted at power until the ground shook. It's a reminder that discovery isn't always noble, that innovation can blind as much as it illuminates, and that progress without humility tends to bury its lessons under rubble. But it's also proof that people keep pushing forward. Sailors through fog, inventors through failure, protesters through tear gas. History isn't just what we survive, it's what we learn. And if we're lucky, by the next October 21st, we'll turn on the light before we charge into the dark.